The phrase, "we grew apart," is a misdiagnosis of a friendship's end. It's a comforting story we tell ourselves about a process that is actually far more mechanical and far less romantic. The truth is that smart, empathetic people land on opposite sides of this idea, because both the sentimental explanation and the structural one have consequences worth examining. They reveal what we truly believe about our own agency. Where do you stand? By the end of this, the answer might surprise you. Think about a friendship that faded, the one with the person who was your other half in college, or the colleague you spoke to every single day. The story we usually tell is one of personal evolution. It feels true. At 18, you bonded over late-night study sessions and cheap pizza. At 30, your priorities have shifted. You have a mortgage, perhaps a family. Your political views may have hardened or softened. Your idea of a good time is no longer a loud concert, but a quiet weekend. The person you are today simply has less in common with the person they are today. The divergence feels natural, almost biological, a law of personal physics. Just a slow, gentle drift. The weekly calls became monthly check-ins. The monthly texts became annual birthday wishes on a social media wall. You see their life unfold in pictures, a silent movie of a stranger who shares your memories. The person who once knew your every thought now doesn't know you work in a new department, or that you picked up pottery, or that you stopped drinking coffee. It's a quiet sadness, the kind you feel for a favorite sweater that no longer fits. You've just changed. Separately, this narrative is powerful because it's a no-fault conclusion. It preserves the dignity of the past while accepting the reality of the present. The friendship was beautiful. And it's over. Both can be true. That story is convincing. It's emotionally resonant. But there is a glaring problem with it. What if the change wasn't inside of you, but around you? What if the personal drift was just a symptom of a much larger structural collapse? This is the container theory of friendship, and it is brutally unsentimental. The theory argues that most friendships are artifacts of a shared environment. They are products of a container. That container might be a university campus, a specific office floor, a weekly yoga class, a neighborhood pub, or the sidelines of your kid's soccer practice. These containers provide the three critical ingredients for bonding that sociologists identified decades ago. First, proximity. You are physically near each other. Second, repeated and unplanned interactions. You don't have to schedule a time to see them. You just bump into them in the hallway, the break room, or the parking lot. Third, a setting that lets your guard down. A shared struggle, like a difficult project or a boring class, creates an instant us against the world dynamic. These three factors create a kind of friendship incubator. The connection feels organic, it feels chosen, but it is being heavily subsidized by your environment. Imagine your work spouse. You know their coffee order, their partner's name, the telltale sign they're having a stressful day. The bond can feel more intimate than some of your friendships outside the office. The reason is simple. You likely spend more waking hours with this person than with almost anyone else. You're in the same container for 40 hours a week. The system is designed to create this bond. But then, one of you gets a new job. You promise to keep in touch, to get lunch. You mean it. But the logistics have changed. Suddenly, seeing them requires scheduling, travel, and effort. It moves from being an effortless part of your routine to an item on your to-do list. And the data is clear. The vast majority of these intense work friendships wither and die within a year of the container being removed. The bond was real, but it was conditional. It was tethered to a specific time and place. This is a chilling thought. It suggests our social lives are less about choice and more about circumstance. Are we just pins in a bowling alley, bumping into whoever happens to be in the same lane? It feels too cynical, too deterministic. It seems to discount the genuine affection and emotional investment we feel. After all, if the container is everything, why do some friendships survive a cross-country move, while others die when you just switch departments at the same company? There must be more to it than pure logistics, and there is. The truth, as usual, is far more complicated than either side admits. The container creates the opportunity for friendship. It's the fertile soil where 1,000 seeds are scattered. Most of those seeds sprout into little more than casual acquaintance. They are context-dependent and wither the moment the environment changes. We call these friendships of convenience. But sometimes, a seed finds exceptionally good soil. The connection deepens. You move from talking about the shared context the work, the class, to talking about your lives, you build a bond that transcends the container that houses it. These are the friendships that have a chance of survival. But that survival comes at a cost. When the container is removed, the friendship fundamentally changes its nature. It shifts from being passive and ambient to being active and intentional. It requires work, real work. You have to schedule calls across time zones. You have to spend money on plane tickets. You have to make a conscious effort to remember the details of their life that you once absorbed through daily osmosis. The friendship stops being a given and becomes a choice. You have to keep choosing it over and over again. This is where the concept of growing apart gets redefined. It's often a euphemism. It's a kinder, gentler way of saying, I looked at the work required to maintain this connection without the environmental subsidy, and I decided it wasn't worth the cost. It happens through 1,000 small moments of inaction. The text you thought about sending but didn't. The call you meant to return but got busy. Each small choice, each deferred effort is a vote, and eventually the votes pile up, the connection weakens, the silence grows. Oxford anthropologist Robin Dunbar's research suggests we can only maintain about 5 truly close, intimate friendships at any given time, the kind that requires significant emotional and temporal investment. When a friendship loses its container, it is essentially asking for one of those 5 precious slots. It's competing with the people who are still in your current container, your partner, your new colleagues, your new neighbors. It's a brutal competition. Some friendships win that competition. Many do not. The failure is a failure of resource allocation. This reframing raises a profoundly uncomfortable question. If a friendship dies, who is responsible? The "we grew apart" narrative is a story of no-fault emotional plate tectonics. It's a passive event. It happened to us. It absolves everyone of responsibility. It allows for a warm, wistful nostalgia, untainted by guilt or regret. You can look back on the friendship as a perfect, sealed chapter of your past, a beautiful thing that had its time. There is no blame. The container theory is a story of active, ongoing choice. If a friendship died because the effort to maintain it became too high, then it could have been saved. With more calls, with more visits, with more work, you let it, both of you. It was a series of small, individual decisions made out of convenience, fatigue, or shifting priorities. This perspective transforms nostalgia into something more complex. It introduces the ghost of agency, the ghost of what could have been. The friendship's end was an active choice made through inaction. You quietly, mutually, agree to stop keeping it alive. This moves the entire discussion from a diagnosis of the past to a prescription for the future. If friendships are machines that require maintenance, we can become better mechanics. We can recognize when a container is about to be removed, a graduation, a new job, a move, and we can create a plan. We can ritualize the connection, we can schedule the weekly call, we can book the annual trip, we can replace the lost ambient intimacy with deliberate structured intimacy. We can, in theory, save the friendship from the entropy of distance. We can fight the current. But should we? Maybe the natural expiration of some friendships is a healthy process. Maybe it makes space for the new connections that our current environment offers. Maybe holding on to every past connection is a recipe for being stretched too thin, a ghost in your own life. So we are left with 2 fundamentally different ways of seeing our social worlds. In one story, our relationships are like gardens. They grow, they blossom, they change with the seasons, and sometimes they wither. The process is organic, mysterious, and largely outside our direct control. It's a story about who we are. In the other story, our relationships are more like architecture. They are structures built and maintained. They depend on scaffolding, on regular maintenance, on deliberate effort against the forces of decay. This story is about what we do. It's a story of engineering and logistics. One view gives us poetry and nostalgia. The other gives us agency and responsibility. So, where do you draw the line? Think about that person, the friend whose absence is a quiet ache or a distant memory. Did you simply grow apart? 2 ships passing in the night on the vast ocean of personal change? Or did the ship you built together simply run out of fuel while you both stood on the deck and chose not to fix the engine?